Hi, I'm Wes Allen with DM Tales, and this is part of my continuing coverage of GameHole Con. Here's my thoughts on the games that I played. Let's roll it. So just a heads up, during the convention I decided to limit myself, for the most part, the two Cypher games I played were different, to 2-hour adventures. That gave me a chance to sign up for more games while leaving me time to work on some video stuff and interview work. Let's get to the games I played. So the game I was most excited to play at GameHole Con was without a doubt Numenera, which was also the first game I played at the convention. Sitting at the Numenera table was a huge moment for me because I think I've mentioned this in previous videos. While I've been running this game for almost 2 years, I've never rolled any dice for it. That game, sitting at that table, was literally the first time using the character sheet for any Cypher System game at all, and it was so much fun. It was a crazy adventure set in the science fantasy world set 1 billion years into the future, and it included duplicated people, malfunctioning artifacts, and even, believe it or not, zombies. The other players were a ton of fun, and I kept bumping into 2 of them throughout the convention. We became friends. I was also reminded, though, why I enjoy not having to roll dice for Numenera when I'm running it. Because my rolls, they were awful. And yet the adventure was still a lot of fun. I've had Coriolis: The Third Horizon on my shelf for years, and I have read the book, but I've never reviewed it. The game mechanics are good, the setting is wild, but it almost seemed like the world was too tight and too huge for me to digest. And the book itself, while beautiful, it's a work of art, it just didn't function well as a book. Looking at it just overwhelmed me. So when Coriolis the Great Dark was announced, it didn't ping my radar because I was remembering my experiences getting through the Third Horizon. And yet I did still want a cool sci-fi game to get into my repertoire, so when I saw an opportunity to play The Great Dark at GameHole, I got myself a ticket, and wow. The setting's still detailed, but things feel more digestible somehow. Gameplay leans into crawling, but it's not limited to it, and I do find that appealing. The character sheets are simple, and it uses a trimmed down Year Zero system, which removes skill dice from the pool, where you're just trying to roll a 6, and any 1s become a problem only if you decide to push your roll a little bit further to either succeed or get a better success. My character actually ended up dying on a pushed roll, and I loved it because it just was a great moment. I was also able to take a look at the book itself at the table, and I noticed that it's still beautiful, but it's much more readable this time out. I'm probably going to pick this game up at PAX Unplugged if I can. Daggerheart has been the popular kid on the block for a few months, and while I was able to pick the game up a month or so ago, it's sitting right there on my shelf, until I signed up for a Learn to Play session at GameHole, I had yet to play it at all. I sat down for an hour encounter session, which took us through an ambush encounter, and I had a lot of fun with it. I find Daggerheart's mechanics were easy to pick up, and I loved how Spotlight Initiative worked, and the GM could just spend fear in order to steal it. It was cool. Things did move fast, though I have been told that Daggerheart combat can rival 5e in terms of time suck. That's not my experience so far, but that is what I've been told. And I do have to say I would have liked to play past the sample encounter for another hour or so. Now, the one thing that I did not enjoy about Daggerheart were the cards. I have become a deck goblin through my Cypher play, but in general, I can't stand having clutter in front of me at the table. It just makes my brain go haywire. And in theory, the decks are meant to make it easier for characters to reference their different abilities and swap them out when they make changes, which I do appreciate. I know many people who find this to be a helpful part of the system, and I can see how it could be helpful. My experience, on the other hand, was the opposite. See, at the start of play, I read through my cards, and I found an ability that would allow me to re-roll my hope die if I spent some hope. But when a moment arrived in play where I needed to use that ability, I couldn't find it. I scanned the cards over and over and over, and nothing. And I almost told the GM to just skip it, because by that point I was holding up play, and there is nothing which annoys me more than that. But just as we were about to move on, I found it on the last line of one of my cards. Now look, I'm older, so reading small text can be a struggle in general, but if the information on the cards were a bit clearer on where the different abilities appeared with bullets or even small headings, I might feel that the cards were more helpful than I found them to be. But even with that minor frustration, this is a game I think I'd like to try out some more. One of my current campaigns is Dragonbane, which is another one of those systems I've not yet had enough chances to play. So at GameHole, I took part in the tournament adventure, The Sinking Tower, and I had a blast. The other characters at the table were great. We utilized the different aspects of the system to our advantage, and we worked well enough together to make it to the top of the tower and complete the main objective of the quest. I survived, I think, with 2 hit points. I do still have my sheet. I need to go look. And we all dove off the tower as it sank back beneath the water. It was really cool. Everything about my experience with this system reinforces why I enjoy running it. The game requires smart play to be the most fun. Combat is unpredictable with some heavy hits. And I love how the game engine is both roll under and skill based. If you have not had a chance to try Dragonbane, my GameHole experience leads me to renew my recommendation. Try this game out. It is so much fun. Shadowdark is another darling system which has enjoyed a huge amount of community support over the last couple of years, and it shows no sign of slowing down. People argue now over whether or not Shadowdark is OSR, but I don't think that's even an argument. Shadowdark isn't a retro clone, but you don't have to be a retro clone to be OSR. It is OSR play. It's a system I've both played and run a handful of times, and I knew I wanted to play it some more, so I signed up for a nice 2-hour session at GameHole. Now, the Shadowdark table I sat at was both my first Lurking Fears adventure and was run by my friend Mr. Dragonbane, and the irony of his internet moniker is not lost on me in this instance. Now, Lurking Fears is a group of pro-level GMs who run games at a number of conventions, promising a great experience, and Jonathan, or as he is known in real life, lived up to that claim. He was a great GM who set the mood, and he knew it was a one-shot, so he didn't let us go banging our heads on trying to do things that would just waste our time. Now, I played a wizard for the adventure, which I have wanted to do for a while, and I adored the tension of Shadowdark's roll to cast mechanic. In fact, the only spell I failed to cast successfully was when I tried to use my knock spell on a door, and it was literally the only time that that spell would be useful in the adventure, and I failed. And then I had a luck token, and I spent it. I was like, oh, I'm just going to re-roll because I only have to roll a 6 to succeed. And I failed again. The uncertainty triggered this nice adrenaline boost, and the double failure left me laughing at myself. It was absolutely hysterical. No, we ended up having this huge fight with a monster. We grabbed some treasure, and we took off for home. That game has always, as has been my experience, just moved. And anymore, that's what I'm looking for in a system. I don't want to wait. I don't want to sit around twiddling my thumbs as it goes around a table for like 40 minutes. And I've done that. I just want to play. And Shadowdark pulls that off in brilliant fashion while making things like failing spell checks actually fun. I love it. Try it out. The last game I played, and it was literally one of the last games in the entire convention, was Gunslinger Knights. This is a specific setting for the Cypher system, which meant that the game was only the second time I got to roll dice for Cypher as a system. The Gunslinger Knights setting is wild. Characters belong to an order of blessed firearm-wielding knights who ride on blessed motorcycles, which are their steeds. But unfortunately for the knights, their world was overrun by horrors, and they now fight a losing battle on other worlds trying to keep those horrors from spreading. Pretty much everything about the setting is right up my alley. And Gunslinger Knight's characters also possess some wild special abilities, which makes them a blast to play, and because it's Cypher, much about how these abilities work is left to the description of both the players and the GM working together rather than having to go through the minutiae of the rules, which is meant to keep play moving. This book was already on my radar to get, and it'll definitely be one of the books I pick up at the Monte Cook Games booth at Page this coming January. Unfortunately, I wasn't really meshing with the GM for the game, and I just found myself spending a lot of time waiting, and that made the game drag on longer than it should have. The convention closed at 6. Monty Cook Games had their booth broken down, and the final battle, it was just gearing up. I needed to bail at 6 o'clock to meet some folks for dinner, so I took my last turn and I apologized as I packed up and just got out. I have no idea how the final session of my convention experience ended. That's kind of a bummer. But I do have to say, the setting, which has nothing to do with the way that the game was being played, is just awesome. I'm a bit conflicted by my decision to focus on shorter adventures at GameHole. On one hand, it did enable me to try more games, and it freed up some much needed quiet time for me, which I desperately need when I'm surrounded by people for that many hours. But on the other hand, I'd have really enjoyed some more time with Coriolis or Daggerheart. There's always a trade-off to any strategy, and that's one thing that I'm struggling with right now. Still, even with my less enjoyable experience with my final game, I had a blast playing in this many adventures. If I ever get a chance to go again, which, like I said, is unlikely, I think I might set one night to do a long adventure after dark just to see what it's like. All in all, I had a great time. Thanks for watching this video, folks. If you enjoyed it, please consider hitting that like button, leaving a comment, and sharing it with others. All those things add up, and without them, DM Tales just falls into the algorithm's abyss. And if you want to keep up with DM Tales, click that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so that you're made aware when DM Tales posts something new. A special shout out goes out to my coffee contributors who keep this channel running out of the kindness of their own hearts. If you'd like to help keep DM Tales caffeinated and making these cool videos, the link, well, that's right over there. And with the holidays coming, you may be looking for some fun gifts, so check out my merch store for some TTRPG related t-shirts and hoodies, including this one with the channel's motto, "Roll some dice, worlds are waiting." Folks, until we see each other again, happy playing, everyone.